So, welcome, Francois.
Kia ora, everyone. Kia ora.
Thank you. So we just need to also remember we've got to have the quietness in the room for the live stream to work efficiently and effectively. Ashley, would you like to read the karakia?
I don't have a copy in front of me, sorry. Would happily have a go at it, but I would need that, sorry.
Recording in progress.
Yes, right. TC, Tiara, sorry. Would you like to do the Paul? I'll do. Sorry. Would anybody like to do the karakia? Paul.
Ngā te atu i ngā ka hauki roto ki tēnā o mātou tu wā awhina tupu mai mātou hei hoki a mātou i ngā kaupapa i tēnā ka ki tēnā o te mātou te tama tuai o tapu.
Amen. We'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome any members of the public that are watching via Zoom. Welcome to the meeting. And we will move through to apologies. Do we have any apologies? Nothing received? No, nobody to apologise for. Can I have somebody move, please, that the apologies are accepted? Leave it at Donna. Thank you, Paul. Second by Donna. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Declaration of interest register. Has this been complete? It has. Everybody dealt with that.
Just noting I've an addition there today.
Thank you. This will come around every time we have a council meeting, so if you do just flick through and check that everything's in order and nothing's been omitted, and anything to add, please add. Thank you. We have no items on the agenda, so we'll move straight into the minutes of the meeting. So the Alderberry Council meeting minutes from the 24th of October. As we 24th of October was our first meeting, wasn't it? It was. So as we were all present, if I could have somebody please move and second that they have true and accurate record.
Yep.
Stephen and Ashley. Sorry, Councillor. Councillor Kesson. Sorry. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. And I approve that my digital signature should be added to the confirmed council minutes of 24th. Thank you. Minutes to be received from the standing committees. Now, the CE's review committee minutes from the 23rd of March 22, bearing in mind that we're only receiving these minutes, we're not confirming the correctness, as we weren't present two councillors that were, if they were on such committees. So, can I please have somebody move that we receive the minutes from the CE's review committee minutes, the Extraordinary Capital Projects and Tenders Committee, and the Ordinary Council meeting minutes from the 22nd of September. Thank you, Councillor Neil. Councillor Rudin, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Right, action list on page 2. Chief Executive Simon Bastian will speak to us on this, and 3 points are there. Sorry, someone if you'd like to take the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, councillors. This will be a standing item as we go through this triennium. Any actions that come out or get added to this list will be updated at each meeting. We like to knock actions off recently, but we'll see that the orange dot means the action there has been around for some time. Green means obviously it's quite current, and red it's well overdue. So just progressing through the 3 we've put on the council agenda today. Last triennium council started the second review, and those feedback comes through to the transportation manager I can confirm that the feedback has been finished and they'll be updating council as part of the transportation update on the council meeting of 8th of December. Paki Waitara Council Building business case. I can confirm we've engaged with a consultant to actually evaluate the future strategy in regards to this building and the one across the road. I would also like to highlight the opportunity we have also including Government House in the consideration. We have invited NZ Heritage to meet with council on the 8th of December to evaluate that, and we've been offered to go through a walkthrough of the building on that day as well. In the Racecourse Development Subdivision bid, we confirm that we have been successful, just over $3.5 million to do the infrastructure works to that site. Next stage of that is obviously to do the detailed planning of what that looks like. And also at the 8th of December council meeting, council will receive an update from RSL, who are contracted to look at recreational facilities for Hokitika and provide the finalised report for that, which includes the second half of the racecourse. Happy to take any questions, Your Worship.
Required questions to ask? Yes.
Racecourse development. So we had the announcement that the funding had been approved. However, it has galloped ahead quite a lot, hasn't it?
Sorry, I can't quite hear you.
We've discussed previously around about the racecourse development and the fact that this funding application was for the infrastructure only.
Yes.
So can we just clarify that, because there does seem to be some expectation, including from the Minister's office, that this is more than that, and that there is some commitment to go beyond the infrastructure that we had talked about, because we haven't actually approved anything beyond that.
No, so the infrastructure is to allow for housing developments to occur.
Yes.
So this is an enabler, but there is a commitment for some housing to be delivered. So we've, in the agreement with IAF, we have agreed to up to 30 pensioner housing as part of the portfolio to be delivered as part of this agreement. So the infrastructure,
I don't recall that. We talked about it in general terms, that the future would be for the council. This funding would enable the infrastructure for the roading and curbing, etc. Underground services. And the next stage beyond that was for to manage a third party that would be a developer for.
yeah, so we're not asking council to build those assets. So this will, next stage will be engaging with developers or other parties to construct those facilities.
Yes, but my question is, when did we actually commit to 30?
As part of the application bid.
Was that actually sanctioned at the council table? I don't recall.
I believe it was, I can't recall the exact date.
My recollection was that we hadn't, and it was the last discussion we had about it was a fairly robust one. Councillor Neal in particular was still uncertain because there was the because of the pressures from the equine community.
That's what was through the LTP. Yeah, we're always, the intention as part of that LTP conversation was that development would occur on half of the racecourse site.
Yes.
And the proceeds from that site would pay for the recreational activities on the other half of the site.
Yes, but I didn't think there was a commitment to it's going to bind future councils to that.
Part of the agreement, there is a commitment to go forward with housing. They wouldn't give us funding with no. So,
Well, of course, that was the concern at the time, it became with strings attached.
so I suppose the LTP discussion talked about developing the site, and about $4 million was put into the LTP to develop the site, which obviously this 3.5 offsets that 4 million completely, well, not completely, but majority of it, to develop the site to enable a housing development to occur.
I didn't think that the money that was put into the LTP was for the same thing, or stated as being the same thing as the infrastructure fund. And Paul, I think I do agree that I still don't think we've consulted properly with the community. The consultation that happened with the community through the LTP came out very strongly in favour of a lot of equestrian people submitting to that. But we've really gone out and put the big picture, all the different options on the line for people to discuss. It's sort of, because it's half of it's owned residential and half of it isn't, there seems to have been a presumption made that therefore it's owned residential and therefore that's where that should all be building, should all be residential. And I don't think that's a decision that's been made by the full community. I've still got people saying to me, why are you doing elderly housing there? Why aren't you doing it here? And I just think we need to have more conversations around it. So I agree with what you're saying.
We have committed and signed up to an agreement now. So the next stage here is to work with, obviously, two lots of parties. One is the design around the recreational area, and the other is to finalise the design for the housing development.
And whenever the discussion about following on with, pushing through with the infrastructure fund has happened, I think it's been stated that we still need to consult, but there's been a timeline to follow for the infrastructure funding. So it's pushed on through, but there still hasn't, doesn't mean that the conversation has been completely had. So doesn't mean it can't happen, but I think we still need to have that.
So the intention was the design hasn't been finalised in terms of what the area will look like.
Go on quite a small area, so there's still potential for it to go either way. So I still think it's really good to have those conversations with the wider community.
In the roadmap forward, that's still to be developed. We're meeting with IAF next week to talk about that.
So if I can, for clarification, the proposal will go out to the community on the concept of what will be constructed or is proposed to be constructed on site for them to be able to have input into.
So we will come back to council with a roadmap in terms of this is the way forward for the development of the site.
The proposed way forward.
Yeah.
Through the chair, so I understand that it was it was an opportunity to this funding, and they had to be in order to benefit from it. But I just feel that we've missed a step out here. We've been all of a sudden we're on this treadmill and we're committed to building it, and I must be thick because I don't recall a commitment from the council table that yes, we're going ahead with actual housing and these are the numbers. And
I don't know if you were at the meeting with partners presented the business case and everything else. So the council, last council gave me the authority to sign off on the application based on previous reports to council.
I was there at the meeting where the consultants talked about it, and we talked about where the appropriate place was for a road through the middle, for instance. So if that's the meeting,
this is possible, but it needs to be discussed further as to what's the best way.
In terms of design, yes. In terms of final design, but there's always a commitment to put development on right from the application stage.
The
Right,
horse is bolted is.
It's the right place for it, fault.
Well, it depends on
so
what
if I
happens.
can, firstly, if we can have the conversation, not overlapping, but also address through the chair. So with that, can we perhaps have a review of the meeting by way of content, where that discussion happened with council, just so there's clarification on that. And as far as moving forward with this, bearing in mind that we are being asked to move a second receipt of Simon's report shortly, as far as the content goes, is there, would either of the councillors like further discussion?
We're hearing that we are committed to this, and so we're therefore bound to make it work. I think it would be useful for the new councillors to go back over what was discussed at the last discussion about this, which was the consultants, the O'Connor people. I think that would be useful. But other than that, I think we need to move on. But,
Just to highlight, we did supply a copy of the agreement. We did, so Scott, do you want to come in on that? Scott? So we did supply.
Hello, I am here. Sorry, I was just out of it. We had a, if you recall, we had a session at the in the confidential session where both O'Connors and Partners and Josephs put forward the proposal that included a full sensitivity analysis of what we were looking at. I think the question is whether everybody was actually at that meeting, because I'm not sure there were.
I was.
Yeah.
Well, there were two sessions. There was a session that was done earlier on with Josephs, where Councillor Neil raised the issues around the equestrian session, and then there was a secondary meeting that we had pretty much the last council meeting, I think, before it shut down.
Yes, and in that meeting we supplied the agreement. There's been some miscommunication, but council gave me the authority to finalise the negotiations to get it to $3.5 million, which is quite considerable across the table.
So if I can, Simon, the timeframe on that, confirming that the application for that money was by the end of September of this year?
It was in between the council being appointed.
Right, okay, so there was a timeframe on it. I think in that respect, I think if we can perhaps source out that meeting minutes and then any relevant information and send that through to everybody as a complete file, so we can all have a review of that. And then perhaps some feedback on whether we need to be meeting just to be updated and more informed going forwards with this, and having a discussion that's essential for that, with the mind to perhaps bring anything back on the agenda for the next meeting.
Which is already very full agenda.
I know, so yeah, is everybody happy with that?
So if it, through your worship, if it was discussed subsequent to the meeting with the O'Connors and Joseph Associates, because that was the meeting that went late in the day, as I recall. And that was a robust discussion and didn't really have any, didn't really come to any conclusion, I thought, with that. Other than the citing of there was a, on the map that they had produced to us.
Were you at the September meeting?
And that's what I'm getting to. But if they came to the September meeting, I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't at that meeting.
No, there was basically so there's a report to council with the agreement attached, and gave me the authority to proceed to final stage.
Okay. Well, I apologise if that's the case. I wasn't at that meeting. That seems to be sort of a quantum leap from where we landed in the previous meeting with the in committee with the consultants.
That point's noted.
Just to highlight, it's fair to say that the process to get the funding was quite tight and robust as well. Obviously, we can attest that other parties around New Zealand were in the same position, so we were under the pump to finish this
Just following up on Paul's comment, how committed are we to, as a new council, to this project? I mean, are we locked in, obliged to carry the project forward?
So there are out clauses, and it comes down to really commercial viability. We don't put ourselves in a position whereby doing a development portfolio increased. And the number we've put in there is certainly 30.
Any further questions?
Yeah, through your worship, in terms of the 55 units with contract to develop, where's the funding for that coming from? Obviously not the $3 million, because you're not going to get 55 houses for $3 million. Is that external funding through other grants, or?
So ideally it comes from a developer.
Right.
So that is yet to be worked through in terms of how the next stage goes through.
Okay.
I think it clearly sort of demonstrates that we perhaps need to have an update on this concept. So we've all got our heads around what the intention is, what the picture looks like, and start to bring the information.
Wasn't an induction package report, but I'll.
Yeah. It isn't there. So go back through, but I think if we can bring all the information together, and update on that, and we'll communicate out as far as whether we need to actually have a workshop or in a brief format that we can upskill ourselves as far as information goes and understanding of the whole process.
I just also highlight it was under confidential, if you recall, right through that whole process until the announcement. To say it differently.
It's not positive about Paki Waitara building, but the positive about the discussions with Heritage New Zealand about the government buildings. I think there's a great solution for both parties, to be honest. Even at this early stage, I'd be so bold as to say that, I mean, here's an iconic building of Hokitika that's going to be strengthened to the highest standard, looking for a purpose. Well, we've got one, and we're looking for a home, and I think it's a great marriage. So I do encourage that one.
So just to highlight, once again, Heritage New Zealand is very keen to talk to council about this opportunity. Hence the reason that they're presenting to council on the 8th. So once again, it comes down to evaluating all options. So we're getting someone to pull all those options together and understand what the net benefit will be, the pros and cons of each opportunity.
Councillor Beard, everybody in favour? Against? Presentations. Now we have the chair of this knowledge, John Conroy, to speak the presentation. She's accompanied by, I won't say it now. By Chris Ray, who is also a board member. So welcome to the meeting.
Thank you.
And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Great to see you again. So we are required to report to council from time to time, and this particular report is really the financial report and update for the period ended 30 June 2022. So we have just completed all of the audits for 3 organisations yesterday. We're waiting for them to finish, and so this is what we're doing today. So just to recap. So just to recap, that's our board. Unfortunately, Chris Gawley couldn't be with us today, had a prior commitment, so you've just got Chris and I. So our strategy headline is to grow our community, grow and protect our communities, our economy, and our unique natural environment. To talk about yesterday, so apologies for repetition, but it's quite hard to do otherwise. So just Wild Foods is on track this year. We've got the first pensioner project underway, pensioner housing project, which is done in Fitzherbert Street. So if you're passing, you could pull it and have a look.
Sorry, the questions for us to do it at the end of each
session? At the end of each slide would be really good, but then we're on track.
Okay. Can I just ask them, please, Joanne, yesterday there was reference to ticket sales being kept at 5,000, I thought I saw. So you were talking about exceeding 10,000. So
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've come back on that.
I think that was a KPI of Mel's was to keep it at a minimum of 5,000.
So I think the
And she talked about a
5,000
cap
is
as well,
minimum.
but didn't
I
specify.
thought I heard the word cap, so
Yeah.
that's why I thought it was being held at that.
She later said there was a cap, but she didn't say what the cap was.
Right, okay, so she's looking at a minimum of 5,000.
Yes,
Right,
yes, so
okay.
that's one of her KPIs is to make sure there's at least 5,000, yes, but what she doesn't want is this huge crowd that has come in the past and
Yes.
hasn't resulted in a very good result.
Yeah.
The heliport is showing green shots. I didn't type this up when I went this morning, what is green shots? I think it means green shoots, I think it means that it's starting to grow, and obviously you'll see tourism numbers growing. I've driven up the coast yesterday, I saw buses. Wow, I haven't seen buses in 2 years, so it's fantastic to see that happening. And you know, the heliport does create really good income for Destination Westland. The airport terminal, as Mel highlighted yesterday, has been finished, looks great. And the next focus is to have a look at the airport master plan to create a bit of activity up there. So Susie, could we have another slide? So this is, it's a little hard to see, sorry, this is the audited results for Destination Westland for the year to 30 June. And I think the most important thing is the surplus, which is 788,000 compared to the budget of 17. So things are ticking along quite well. The income is up, but the expenses are down, and that's part of what we talked about yesterday as well. Was trying to create some really good efficiencies within that business. So back to strong results. Long-term plan, we are looking for more diversification to keep growing that, so that we're not so reliant on perhaps the aviation side of things, which really hurt going into COVID. And keeping costs down is a really important thing. So just noting that Mel has really driven this as CE. She's been given strategy and some KPIs, and she's really worked hard to achieve the goals that are set for her. So she's doing a very, very good job.
Westroads. So this, obviously we were reporting on last year's results. The end of the financial year was 30th of June, but just an update on where they're at for the start of this year. So their profits 2/3 of budget due to the cost of sales increase. But that's quite normal. You'll see there the first quarter's generally released profitable for Westroads, and you'll see that most years to be fair. They stretched in the last 2/3. Western District Council, as the previous one was not so profitable.
Susie?
So again, a little bit hard to see there, but turnover is slightly down, and that's majority to the ongoing effects of COVID. The expenses are also up due to the redundancies that were taken over with COVID. But on the good news front there, 2.1 million down on the term loan and $473,000 overdrafts were paid, so they're sitting pretty good financially for weathering any storms that are coming up due to the Reserve Bank. And as you'll see there, their net profit being 1.2, which is good.
So moving on to Westland Holdings. So as we discussed yesterday, we've been working really hard to get that funding through LGFA to try and reduce lending costs. We have completed all the paperwork and prerequisites with the LGFA, and so we are in a position to hopefully get that in place before the end of the year. That would be initial lending. It would be dependent on the subsidiaries' bank loans maturing. So as they mature with the bank, they'll move over to the lower interest rates that we can get through the LGFA. So we're about to begin work on our SOI, for hopefully that will be workshopped February, March, and we'll get some really good feedback, hopefully from the councillors. By then you'll have a real strong understanding of how things are working and what the priorities are, what we can do for you. We did a 360-degree loop survey with our stakeholders probably around about the end of the financial year, and we had some fantastic feedback, positive results about the way we interact with the stakeholders, so that was good news. And they do help us to focus on any areas that we're a bit weak, so we're pretty happy with that. And just, we have got a real focus on supporting our two subsidiary companies. We know there's tough economic times ahead, So part of that is getting the interest rates under control. And then we are starting working on reviewing the risk registers to make sure that they're as strong as they can be financially. Just to recap, another one, Susie, sorry. Recap, these are the consolidated results. So Westland Holdings itself doesn't have a lot of financial activity. So we take the Westland, Destination Westland and Westroads and bring them together to have a consolidated result. So that's a consolidated result. It was a reasonably good year, given that particularly that Westroads was still suffering. So yesterday there will be a dividend paid out this year from Westroads, which is an improvement because last year they didn't make any money. So so things are looking reasonable. So any questions, please?
Thank you, Joanne and Chris, for that. Does anybody have any questions? Can we see the slides, please?
Yes, sorry, the only, seriously, we're completed about 10 o'clock. I think we're waiting for the, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Susie, can you? Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. So I have a question on the pensioner housing site that's currently working, because I did ask Mel what the level of debt was that Destination Westland held at the moment, but she couldn't answer that. So how is that development and how's that, what's the commercial development, is that, how's that being funded?
So the land purchase was funded through the profit from the sale. So Destination Westland had a share in the Canary Road as well. So that share was used to purchase the land. It wasn't horrifically expensive, 200 something. So that was student over, and then the development of the housing will be on a loan through the local government funding authority. So Mel has put in place a bank facility if she needs it. We can't get it in place in time, but the intention is that we'll have that LGFA funding available to fund that, because yes, so any construction costs that have gone on have been funded from funds held at the moment. So you see there is a profit at the end of the year. There is cash there to pay for what's been done to this point, including the earthworks.
So that section would have been, that land would have been purchased before the sale of Canary Road went through that.
Yeah. But again, there was sufficient funds within Destination Westland to fund it. So it's all worked out well.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions on that report?
Sorry, it is a little bit hard with not having the numbers in front of you.
It is, and no doubt there'll be more questions. The other option is that the AGM is tomorrow at.
So to start, we've got 3 AGMs. The first one's at 1 o'clock. That's Westroads. At 1:45 is Destination Westland. At 2:30 is Westland Holdings, and that is at the fire station
tomorrow. So if anybody would like to go to that, then we'll be welcome with that. We'll give you the access to the report from Destination Westland. So thank you. So is anybody nothing else for Joanne and Chris? No? Right, thank you. So can I please have somebody move and second resolve that the presentations are accepted? Yep. Councillor Neil, Councillor Casson, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. The guests are invited to be here at the 3 o'clock start. So if we can move over on to the staff reports, please. Time for Leslie to start off with that as opposed to
Lindley.
Oh, sorry, Lindley. It's Elliot, sorry. Welcome, Lindley. Thank you. Have you met everybody yet? Not yet. Perhaps if we can do a quick whiz around, start with you, Brian. I'll just introducing yourselves to Leslie, then else Leslie can do Lindley, sorry, and do a quick brief on who she is and who she's from.
Hey again, I'm Brian Manera from the Southern Ward. Pleased to meet you.
Okay, Neil, Northern Ward, hi again. Hi again.
Hi Lindley, Riley Burden, Northern Ward.
Hi. I see you clearly regularly.
Up your driveway every day.
Stephen Gillett from the Hope Ward, Deputy Mayor.
Kailash, yeah. Welcome.
Paul Davidson, Hokitika Ward.
Welcome back.
Yes.
Ashley Casson, Northern Ward.
And Donna Beard, Hokitika Ward. Thank you.
Southern, yeah.
Whoops. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you. So, good afternoon.
Chair Archibald.
Thank you, Francois.
Chair Burke.
That's fine. So through your worship, I present the financial report for October. I'll take it as read, and through your worship, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, through your worship, 2 questions from me, Lindley. First, point 5, the non-cash swaps of 526,000. What does that relate to?
That's the movement in the interest on the swaps. So we were in a liability position up until the end of last financial year, and now we're in a gain position on those because our fixed interest rate is lower than the current interest rates.
And second one from me, point 8 around depreciation. The asset value revaluation gains, did we change a process there or around
Yes,
the
we had
revaluation?
some revaluations last year on infrastructure. The infrastructure revaluation at this point, although it's still subject to audit, is 84 million. So that's quite a substantial gain. Of course, not all of that will add to the depreciation because what we've depreciated on over the last 3 years will come off that.
It's gone up. Cool. Thank you.
In the rates revenue, just the impact of the annual plan change in rates, how's that been reflected in the rates revenue? Is there any implications for that?
Yeah,
so the LTP originally had a 13% rate rise for this year. It was 6.9.
That's right. So the implications are that we are not funding our planned budget, and potentially next year when we look at the annual plan, you're going to have a substantially more higher increase. We're looking at probably over 20% because we held back the current year's rates.
That's stuck to the CapEx.
That's if you stick to the plan.
Yeah. Which was my next question, because that summary today, I think it's got about 2.3 million spent so far on CapEx, budgeted 30.
Yeah.
So by June 2023, certainly our debt will go up another 9 million based on that 30 million being spent. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So if it's not spent, there's potential that the loan will not increase.
By June 2023?
That's really a question for the specific project managers because they will know better where they will be at by the end of the year.
So the extra 9 million debt is kind of a worst case scenario.
Yes.
Just through the chair, there are projects that will not be completed within that time frame. So, and we're talking some reasonable sized ones. We still haven't got if you recall, we've got some funding in for this building, Waitara, which won't be spent. There's a few other large projects as well, which have been deferred.
Through the chair, it's not exactly a worst case scenario. It's basically what we plan to spend if we actually do complete the CapEx that we've said we will complete.
In reality, it should be a best case scenario.
Depends on your point of view.
Through the chair, CapEx depreciation ratio, it says that it should be capital expenditure should be equal or more than depreciation.
Correct.
Is it going to be like that by the end of the year?
No, I expect it to even out by the end of the year. It depends how much we've physically spent at that point at any point in time. And obviously by the end of the year, the expenditure will be considerably higher.
And on page 6, if I can just find that, I was talking about the fees, I think. Oh, with the tourism down, we've had less money coming in for water rates. Have we seen a corresponding decrease in the cost of providing the water or treating the water? Because we're not-
Sorry, can you repeat that question or just,
Like-
which one are you referring to?
Oh, somewhere on page 6, number 1.
Oh, the rates and the lower
So for
the
the water,
usage?
yeah, so we haven't had as much money come in, but then has the cost of providing water also gone down?
No, the cost of providing water is generally the same.
I just, through the chair, can I just touch on that? So obviously we have our assets that manufacture water. And each cubic metre of water takes a sort of operating cost to actually produce, including, you know, chemicals, all those sort of things. There will be a slight reduction, but not a significant one. You know, you produce, say, 50 million litres of water, it takes so much to produce. Producing 30 million is pretty close to the same, it's just decreasing electricity and a few other things.
So how do we come up with the fee for producing the water for people that are paying water rates?
Well, it's based on
a
historical
percentage
and cost modelling.
Yeah.
And also Western Milk have a fixed amount of money.
And just one more thing, if I may. Building fees were 43,000 over budget. Were the expenses in that area also over budget?
With the building fees, etc., I think the consulting fees may have gone up due to staff shortages. That would, I think that's the only area that's been impacted.
So it's still pretty much running.
The rest I believe, I would have to look into it properly to give you a correct answer to that one.
Thank you.
So just on that, so if we're short of staff, we charge more to cover the gaps.
No, just the fixed rates, fixed fees for building consents. Yeah.
So the shortage of staff doesn't factor into that.
Everyone works hard.
Through the chair, we wouldn't pay more for a contract than we would for an internal.
Yes, right, yeah, okay, thank you for the clarification, Leslie.
Yeah, so in terms of the actual fees, we'll see that set, but the hourly rates in terms of what have been in-house as against contract rates, that's what we can.
Thank you for the clarification there. Does anybody have anything further for Lindley? Anybody happy with that? Thank you very much for that report, Lindley. Can I somebody please move and second and resolve that the financial report be received? Councillor Lee? Yes, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carry. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, under staff reports, we move on to adoption of terms of reference for committees. Please.
Thank you, Your Worship and Councillors. Again, as you recall, at the last council meeting, we set and defined the committees and subcommittees as part of the process to validate and those committees is to set a terms of reference. So this report basically outlines the various terms of references for each committee. I won't go through them one by one, but I'll rather just take questions if anyone has any questions on any of those terms of reference. Open up for questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. The delegations for the Chief Executive Review Committee are all straightforward. Until we look at the one about approving any legal representation on performance-related issues or defamation proceedings. And we've had that, of course, with the previous council, with the infamous 7 AM meeting, where that committee sanctioned legal action against a ratepayer that in my view should be brought to council. But I personally wouldn't want to see the Chief Executive Review Committee become a de facto executive committee, which was kind of what it was treated like last term. And that clause allowing that committee to decide on defamation proceedings, I think is a bridge too far.
Yes, I understand what you're saying there, and I have to agree with that. So maybe we need to tidy up the content around that to ensure there's no crossover in the future, perhaps.
This is obviously giving powers to the committee to make legal representation through approval. Happy for it to come to full committee if that's what the council would like to do. Obviously, have to be in confidence considering what this subject matter is about.
But so just for clarification, you're referring to the Chief Executive's Review Committee being used as a committee for a different purpose other than the CE's review?
So I just summarised what I think Paul was saying. It's just to remove that one bullet point, which is approving the legal representation on performance-related issues or defamatory proceedings.
Yes, it's the all defamation proceeding, which is the issue.
Yes.
And if we get to that state, then it should be back to the full council, in my view, and not decided by a small committee, which would be
not the CE.
Well,
Your reference.
It's about protecting myself as your employee.
So I think perhaps we need to be very clear on how that is actually written in reference to remove any risk of the incorrect representation, I guess.
Just to, I suppose to clarify, Your Worship, council has an obligation to protect me as your employee, and that includes anything to do with legal aspect of defamation. So that was put in there just to make sure that point is highly
right.
Yeah, so through Your Worship, it needs to be clarified, and but it would be better, in my view, that was removed and that delegation put to the full council, just so that there's no misunderstanding, and that the committee, as we say, sticks to its knitting, and it's not used for some other purpose, which did happen previously.
If I may, then in that, I'm looking at that now, we're talking delegations of the committee, aren't we? So we're talking about approving any legal representation of performance-related issues or defamation proceedings, is what we're talking about here. So the other option is that we add to that by saying that under the recommendation of committee.
It's a following discussion.
Yes. Or the committee and references that back to the full council.
Full council.
Yes. And I have to agree with you on that the full council should probably be involved with the knowledge and the input into that.
So just to clarify, is everyone agrees that just adding the words following consultation with full council would be adequate?
So we'll have approving following.
I would suggest, just to simplify it, approving any legal representation on performance-related issues or defamation proceedings as directed by the council.
Yes.
That's clear.
That's clear.
Thank you, Jessica.
That's the high score English teacher.
So is everybody quite understanding that what's been raised here and the clarification of that? I have to agree, we've got to be very careful that that these are written up without the opportunity being given for misrepresentation or mismanagement of any of those clauses as far as what we do and how we conduct ourselves and protect ourselves and councils. Happy with that? So can we'll need to move that, won't be an amendment to that. So can I have somebody please move that we change that wording, please? Councillor Beard, thank you. Councillor Neal. So that is everybody, so just to clarify, it's approving any legal representation on performance-related issues or defamation proceedings as directed by full council. So everybody in favour of that? Somebody with that? Yeah, thank you.
Through the chair. Page 67, the tenders subcommittee. It will be a subcommittee of the Risk and Assurance Committee, not subcommittee.
Sorry?
page 67 has got status. I think the risk and assurance is a committee, not a subcommittee.
Where are you? You're on that same bracket of 1.1, you're on 1.2?
I'm on page 67.
Tenders committee.
Yeah, because we're doing them all at once, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I'm not on that, so on the run sheet, what are we on? No, it's the appendix.
Yeah, so the wording subcommittees come off the
And just change to committee.
67 scope.
Okay.
Sorry. Page 67. I understand the same thing. It's just on the status.
Oh, tenders committee, not
Status.
subcommittee.
Right, okay.
So the sub comes off.
And just a question on,
Sorry.
sorry.
You go to page 67, Susan.
Oh,
Oh, you don't have it open.
What's the thing about this?
And the quorum of only 3 people, that's quite minimal. Chair plus 2 others. Should it be more than that? I thought it should be more.
Just to highlight, this is typical standing orders.
Yeah.
So it's a subcommittee of the risk assurance.
And just one other thing to highlight for the subcommittee of the wastewater treatment plant project, obviously, Carfield still has to assign an additional nominee.
Okay, so just recounting that section in terms of reference for those committees, we have an amendment, which is we've done the information proceedings directed by full council. We're adding an appendix 5, it needs sub removed, it's a subcommittee of the risk and assurance committee. Agreed, and that'll be modified. Really happy with that. So it's in with the index, we don't need to remove that section of the meeting as far as moving into the second again, because we've got that index up and then. So if we sit, Councillor Beard, Councillor Kesson, to continue that through. Again, all in favour?
Right.
Against? Carried, thank you. So is everybody crystal clear on that? We've just got to read back because we've put the appendix into of appointments to these committees, council appointed committees. So,
A number of committees to the organisation appointments.
sorry, organisation appointments. Well, it's got confirmation appointments here. So if you want to just have a quick glance over that, Road Safety Committee, Councillor Munira has been added into that. West Coast Regional Transport Committee, Councillor Burden has been added into that. We do have an amendment to make. Councillor Beard is to be included on the Seawall Committee. And Councillor Munira is to be added to the Fox Glacier Community Association. And also remember this Councillor Gillette, onto the West Coast appointment. Panel.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Yep.
Can you just repeat that last statement?
Yes. Also the coverage that if I'm not there, that you can.
I think traditionally it's been just the mayors.
Just the mayors.
Of the West Coast appointing that position.
So if I'm unable to attend,
you can delegate.
I can delegate. All right, okay, that's fine.
As happened last year with when Bruce Smith was unavailable, Dave Crothers filled in.
Put that under delegation next to it. Yeah. The chair of it's actually covered by the deed.
That's right.
Steve.
Steve, okay, thank you for that. So is everybody happy with the makeup of those committees?
Oh, it's through the chair. Hey, I've got a tow truck, so I don't know if I'm too worried about the road safety. Speed it a little bit up a bit,
Just donating 25,000 for that.
So we'll take that vacancy out of Seawall. So is everybody quite happy with those appointments?
And the by default, the Northern candidate once selected will fit into all the Northern Ward roles as well.
Yes, correct.
And other appointments around the different, I guess, non-geographic based groups.
Yes. Correct. Right,
Sorry, through your worship, so just a general question, do you have a role at all in these? We do, for instance, the Seawall Committee, the Joint Seawall Committee.
Just through your worship, the terms of reference for the Seawall Committee is set by Regional Council. So and same for the Franz Joseph. I think Iwi is representing Franz Joseph, if I recall.
Yes,
that's
but you're saying they're not represented
on the Seawall Committee. And I just wondered.
I think they may be, but it's just not in our nominations. So it may already be a direct appointment from Regional Council. I'd have to go back at the terms of reference directly. We can clarify that as an action.
Yeah. Friends is definitely right.
Are you wanting to see iwi representative included in any of those?
Just, I would like to see iwi representation on the Seawall Committee. If it's not all, it may be through the Regional Council insolvency. Yeah. Maybe. But I don't know because it's not us.
Yeah, just can I jump in? Yeah, it's at the Regional Council where we're involved in the Seawall.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So everybody's happy with that. Can I have somebody please move the second resolve? Thank you, Councillor Gillett, Councillor Casson, sorry, Councillor Newman. And resolve that the report be received. Council confirms the appointments to committees, community organisations, and other appointments for this forthcoming triennium. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving right along, we're now on to the appointment of Resource Management Act RMA Commissioner, and Simon will speak to that. So the Chief Executive will speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just to confirm, this is not an appointment, sorry, it's a nomination for appointment. The Joint Committee of the TTPP actually does the final appointments for that role. So nomination will go to the 15th of December TTPP Joint Committee meeting for confirmation. Purpose of this report is obviously the endorsement for Edith Bredrington to be nominated as RMA Commissioner on behalf of West Council. Edith has been involved with the development of the TTP. She's left Regional Council yet, but she's departing Regional Council. She has left, I think that's right. And is working for another company. So she has the ability to become an RMA Commissioner as an independent. The advantages of using Edith is obviously she's fully in-depth knowledge of both the region, the plan, and all the various components of making up the plan. And we have contacted a number of parties that could become RMA Commissioners after some nominations declined the request. Was a my mind when we found out she was leaving was a good fit. I'm happy to take any questions on this.
Any questions arising from? Yes, Commissioner.
I agree, Edith,
Sorry. It's a bad motorbike.
It's a very large tool.
Oh, is that?
Right, yeah, Edith is, I think is a good choice. We worked with her for the past 3 years on TTPP committee. It's plans. Just the downside of that is that she precluded from taking part in the discussion is that she led on TTPP and principally among that was the natural deserts.
There's potential that would be the case, depending on the subject matter and how the subject's discussed. So that is the only negative downside that I see. And Edith would be the only one that could identify exactly if she was compromised in this. So that piece would, as highlighted here, she hasn't made any private submissions and believes she's in fact not compromised in terms of anything to do with the submissions that have been raised. But you're right, she has led a couple of key attributes towards the TTPP.
Use in particular the natural deserts, which is such a big co-public for West Laundry. And that she had to recuse herself. Maybe.
Yeah, and she could provide advice, but it depends on if she was allowed to make a decision.
Is your concern the fact that of their previous involvement that it would compromise her ability to serve this role?
It says so that she's precluded.
Yeah.
In its entirety. I suppose council need to weigh up whether the net benefit of her understanding the full plan in quite a lot of detail offsets some of those minor components of the plan that you can involve.
So it's not so much a concern as to compromise.
Fair advice that commissioners will have a team working with them in terms of advisors as well, so they won't be totally independent.
Yeah, just through the chair, I support the paper. Simon, I think she'll do a stunning job. Know her well in terms of the plan, as you know, and the work she's done's amazing. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and it'll add a lot of value. So yeah, I support it.
Thank you for that, Francois. Can I have a mover and a seconder to support the nomination for the appointment on my case? Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillor Neil. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much for that. Right, moving on to number 9, the meeting agenda, administrative resolution. It's on the run sheet.
Just nominated for warrants, which is a typical staff members that have joined council or working on behalf of council, taking on extra responsibility and then statutory approval from council to do that.
Is everybody aware of? Right, everybody's quite comfortable with what these appointments are, what they mean, what they carry. Some questions on that please ask now, because it's another new thing that's there for councillors and councillors to comprehend.
Just to highlight, this is usually just an administration task for councillors to give powers to do council activity.
Thank you for that. Right, can I please have a mover and a seconder for accepting Anna Johnson and Mark Dixon as contractors? Please, thank you, gentlemen. We've got Councillor Davidson, seconded by Councillor Casson. All in favour? Aye. Thank you. Against? Carried. Thank you. So seal can be affixed to those documents. So we're now voluntarily ahead of schedule. Right, so just while we talk about what we're going to do next, seeing as we're ahead of ourselves.
We could go.
You've got time for that. Right, so we will now pass a resolution to go into the public excluded section. Can I please have somebody move and second and resolve that the council move into the public excluded section now?
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Neal. I don't think we need to adjourn for 2 minutes to allow for a disconnect. Do we? We do, sorry. Yeah, yes, all right, sorry. Of course, sorry. Sorry, I was thinking it was just got. Right, so we'll allow for 2 minutes to disconnect from the Zoom for the open section of the meeting and reconnect the second Zoom invite for the public excluded section of the meeting. So that will happen now, so